Hello and welcome back to Planet Nibiru. In this episode, we'll be looking at probably the world's most famous and most contested conspiracy theory, September 11th, 2001, the day that many of us will remember for the rest of our lives. Much like the death of President John F. Kennedy, folks will often discuss where they were and what they were doing when they heard about the events of that day. I was on my way to work, listening to the Howard Stern morning talk show. He was blathering on about some subject or other in his usual carefree manner, joking and making the morning commute a bit more tolerable. And then as I pulled into the parking lot of my company, he said that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. They began discussing the last time that a plane hit the World Trade Center, and they were talking about it being a small Cessna that hit, and everyone on the morning show was assuming that it was again another small plane. I turned off my car and I took the elevator to the 4th floor of my building where I worked, and I casually walked over to my desk saying hello to some folks along the way. It was a Tuesday morning and I turned my computer on and I started booting up and logging in my normal morning routine. For some reason, I was still thinking about the plane that had hit the World Trade Center, so I went to a news website to get the latest news, and it was then that I first realized that it was no small plane, but a commercial passenger airliner. I looked up at all the other folks in the cube farm, and they were all going about their normal daily routine, making coffee and checking emails and starting the day's work. I spoke to a few people around me and asked if they had heard what had happened, but nobody had yet. I told them they should probably go check the news. I was still thinking about this tragic accident as I made my way to the break room to get a cup of coffee. When I got there, I noticed a few people were standing in front of the television watching the live coverage. Naturally, I joined them as we stood there in awe of the damage that was playing out on the screen in front of us. Sipping coffee, I watched the break room slowly fill with people, and it was nearly full when the second plane came screaming into view and hit the second tower. For a moment, I thought they had found some footage of the original crash. Dumbfounded, we all looked at each other as the television announced that indeed a second plane had hit the second building.
Holy fuck!
Oh my god! Oh my god! Jesus fucking Christ! Chris, are you...
Don't touch it.
Oh my god!
Then, a few minutes later, we heard about the Pentagon, and it was then that we knew we were under attack. Of course, then Flight 93 crashed into that field in Pennsylvania, and we watched the towers fall. When they told us we could finally leave work, I headed home to watch with my family. I spent the day in front of various televisions as the world tried to make sense of what was happening on this beautiful September day. It was all surreal, but when I watched Building 7 crumble, I knew something was wrong. The towers falling the way they did seemed dubious to me, but what did I know? I was told these buildings were designed to fall in on themselves so that they wouldn't take out the whole city if they fell over, and this kind of made sense, that they would try to minimize the damage, and that was enough to satisfy my immediate need to understand why they collapsed like that. But Building 7, this building was never hit by a plane, or even any significant debris. It was barely even on fire, yet it fell in on itself like a perfectly imploded building that you see in the demolition. From watching several documentaries on the subject earlier in life, and of course several TV shows that covered how buildings were taken down with explosives, I knew that it was a very delicate procedure, often taking months of planning and coordination and precision placement of explosives to get it just right. And of course we've all seen what happens if one little thing goes wrong, and the result is that the building falls over sideways, or sometimes doesn't even fall at all. Taking down a building of that magnitude is no simple task. Building 7 was 43 stories tall, and at the time, it would have been the biggest building in 33 different states. So how did it just fall in on itself, pretty as you please, with no help from explosives or even a rogue airplane? The thought bugged me throughout the day, but with events happening at high speed and with the news overflow, I just put it on the back burner of my mind and focused on the safety and security of my family and, of course, my nation. For 3 days I watched the news non-stop, and when it was over, I was fatigued emotionally and physically, and spent, probably like most of you who remember that day. By the weekend, I was ready to sleep all day and forget what my whole world had just changed. I'm sure that many of you will agree that the world did indeed change after 9/11. In the days and weeks ahead, I heard all the conspiracy theories, and I watched all the reports from mainstream media and alternative news outlets. In this time, never once did someone offer a plausible explanation for what happened to Building 7. As I dug for evidence, I ran across a video that changed my mind forever on a great many things. And after I viewed it, things just seemed to change. I'm going to play it now for you.
Similarly, Larry Silverstein, new leaseholder of the World Trade Center, regretfully declared that a decision was made to pull Building 7 by the end of the day, the last structure added to the World Trade Center complex. Let's hear Mr. Silverstein's actual words, delivered for our benefit in the 2002 PBS documentary America Rebuilds.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
So in case you missed it, the man who owned the real estate that the World Trade Center stood on told them to pull it. Pull the building. As I researched the video, I found that pull it is a common term among those who do explosive demolition. The term means take it down, pull it, pull the trigger. Why did the building that was virtually undamaged just implode like that? How did it implode so neatly? Just like a controlled demolition, except, if we believe the official story, without explosives. Again, I come back to the term I first heard on September 11th. They're designed that way. If that is true, why do we need demolition teams? If any old explosion is enough to drop them in neatly, pretty as you please, why does it take these explosives experts months to prep a building and drop it properly? If any fool with a few sticks of dynamite could just drop any building wherever they wanted to, since they're designed to just fall into a neat pile, why don't they? In all the research I have done on the subject since that day, I have never once found anything even remotely plausible to explain how and why Building 7 came down, other than the video evidence that shows that firefighters, police, and the manager of Silverstein Properties were all discussing the felling of Building 7. They cleared the building out, and then they pulled it once they were ready. Official reports say that a fire made the building collapse. A building that is made of steel and concrete was totally felled in a matter of a couple hours by fire? A small fire at that, not a raging inferno blasting out of every window of the building. No, just a small fire. The one thing I know is that these buildings were designed to withstand high temperature fires for just that reason. If a fire was to break out, the building is designed so that it won't fall over and take out half of the town. It's designed so that it will burn and they can put it out, rebuild it, and fix the damage, leaving the building intact. When the small plane hit the World Trade Center in the 1990s, it did catch fire. Did it fall down? Did a floor or two collapse? No, it was barely damaged. Sure, the offices and a couple floors had to be gutted and rebuilt, but the structure was fine. Because steel doesn't melt in fire. Not even when it's caused by jet fuel. But that's another story. I have read the 9/11 Commission report, and I have watched the major documentaries about that day and the events of 9/11. All of them are pretty intriguing. And personally, I find a great many faults with the official stories of what happened with the two main towers. I do not agree with the official narrative, but that's not the point of this video. In this video, I am only saying that I do not believe that there is any rational or reasonable way to explain the way Building 7 came down without the use of explosives. So, looking back on this train wreck, we can see that Larry Silverstein of Silverstein Properties invested $15 million to lease the World Trade Center properties. He was paid over $7 billion for his losses, which include the two towers, World Trade Centers 4, 5, and 6, which were hit by the falling towers but still managed to partially stand, and stand strong, and of course World Trade Center 7, the first steel building and only steel building in history to collapse from fire alone. Silverstein says in his own words that he's told them to pull it. Once the public reacted to these words, pull it, he backtracked to say that he meant to pull the firemen from the building. However, there were no firemen in the building present for over 7 hours when he said that. The World Trade Center 7 was the first and only steel frame building in history to collapse from fire alone. Building 7 has been the focus of many engineers and architects who claim that it was taken down by demolitions experts. They point to the crease in the roofline that shows that the internal support columns were taken out a second before the rest of the building, which is exactly how it's done in controlled demolitions. We should also mention that Building 7 housed some of the most important offices in New York City, including the Secret Service, the CIA, the Mayor's Department of Emergency Planning, and more. The building was cleared at 11 a.m. and fell at 5:20 p.m. As it fell, it encountered no resistance. Just like the two towers, it fell at the speed of free fall, exactly as it should in a controlled demolition. It should also be noted that the BBC somehow reported that Building 7 had fallen 20 minutes before the building actually fell. Was this just a lucky guess? A quirky coincidence that it did indeed fall some 20 minutes later? In my mind, there's no question, but perhaps others are a bit more skeptical than I am and believe it is just a coincidence. If so, please let me know in the comments. If Building 7 was indeed taken down or pulled by explosives, then they certainly weren't planted that day. They would have had to have been there prior to the planes hitting the towers. And if that is true, then the whole story is a lie, and we deserve to know the truth. Building 7, in my mind, is the key to the whole equation. If it was intentionally taken down, then they must have all been intentionally taken down. Now, I am not pointing the finger at anyone in particular. I do not claim to know who did it or why they did it or anything of the sort. I am merely saying that this building could not have possibly fallen into a neat pile, just like a controlled demolition with no outside help. I am also saying that a few small fires could not have possibly taken out such a massive building like this, that is designed to withstand fire. Even if the whole building went up in a giant inferno, it would not have collapsed like it did. These are physical impossibilities. While there are many fine points I could argue about the events of 9/11, none is so egregious, so obviously fake, as the events of Building 7. Many others have taken the media to task about certain aspects of that day, and rightfully so. One of the most compelling is a group called Pilots for 9/11 Truth. As the name suggests, it's a group of pilots who have come together to ask the hard questions about the flights that hit the buildings in New York, Washington, D.C., and the one that crashed in Pennsylvania. These are reputable members of the aviation community who have raised serious concerns about the official narrative. There's another group called Engineers and Architects for 9/11 Truth, who have also sounded the alarm about inconsistencies and outright impossibilities that happened on that day according to the official story. How about the fact that of the 19 supposed attackers that were named to have taken part in the events of that day, at least 7 were found to be alive and well and living in the Middle East. The list goes on, but to me nothing stands out stronger as evidence than what Building 7 gives us. So how about you? What do you say to these videos and the facts that this 43-story high-rise just fell over into a neat pile because of fire? Do you believe that it was just as the media says, that they were designed to work that way and they worked perfectly? Or do you find it hard to swallow as well? Do you think that there's a reason that explosive experts take months to plan and successfully drop a building? I do. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject, and I would love to hear your story on where you were and what you were doing that day. So please, feel free to tell us how you found out and what you thought. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back with a new video soon.